Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After you through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer Dolphins fans' questions. Lots to talk about in today's show. A lot of really interesting moves that the Dolphins made over the last few days here, and I can't wait to talk about those things. But this first news story is definitely the most interesting, or one of the more interesting ones. Dolphins are still looking for center help. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. And according to Barry Jackson, the Miami Herald, a ton of other beat writers, the Dolphins are still very interested in at least adding to the group. Obviously, among the bigger names that are still out there that the Dolphins could add, J.C. Tretter is obviously the biggest one. And I think all of us Dolphins fans, I think really that's the only free agent option for them. Because I actually really do like Michael Dieter at center. I think he did a good job, especially the last month and a half of the year, where the run game kind of started to be a consistent thing, and it kind of started to get going there. And I think Michael Dieter's return, and when he got healthy, had had a lot to do with that. And I think his development, and even when he was coming out of college, I know I've brought this up a million times on this show, but when he was at the Senior Bowl and he played at center, he was really good at it. And a lot of scouts at the time thought that would be his best position in the NFL. And honestly, I still think it is his best position in the NFL. I think he's a good pass blocker at center. I think he's a good run blocker, especially at that position. And I think he doesn't get enough credit for it. Now, he wasn't healthy. He was in and out of the lineup due to the fact that the organization couldn't really pin him to one position. They were constantly moving everyone around, and that I think that hurt him, but I do think his home is at center, and I'm not mad if the Dolphins just decide to keep him there. So I think either way they go with this, it's probably going to be a pretty positive thing. I think Michael Dieter does have a bright future at that position, but if they don't decide to go down that road, I think J.C. Tretter is a fantastic second option, or even a number one option. He's one of the best players at that position already. He can play guard at a high level as well. The 49ers did something very similar to this last year. They signed Alex Mack, who was obviously pretty old at the time, and that really helped the 49ers run game get back to a prominence of where it was, I think 2 years prior to that season, or maybe it was a year. I can't remember. My season's mixed up. But obviously the year they went to the Super Bowl, they kind of, obviously did a lot of renovating of that offensive line. So maybe Mike McDaniel takes a cue from that, the little page from that book, and goes down the Alex Mack road. Gets a little bit older at that position. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see what they end up doing. Center is clearly a very important position in this scheme. Alex Mack was a part of some of the most successful Kyle Shanahan offenses. So it is an important position, especially in the running game, for the scheme. So we'll see what he ends up doing, what he feels more comfortable with. I think either way they go with it, though, whether they even add depth in the draft or they sign a veteran player like J.C. Tretter, who's a really good player, and the Dolphins have enough cap space to do it, believe it or not. Obviously, with some of the moves that they've made over the last 2 weeks, they have plenty of space to add JC to the fold. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think if I were them, I think I would probably pull the trigger on JC Tretter. I honestly don't necessarily know. I think the thing I would not want them to do, for sure, is spend a third-round pick on a center. I think that's just a use. I just don't really understand it. I think, like I said, I think Michael Dieter is developing in the right direction. I just don't really see... I know they want depth at that position, but I feel like there's a lot of positions in this draft that are deep, that you could get someone that could come in and just kind of be the whipped cream on the cupcake. That's not even the right saying. The cherry on top of the sundae. Just to add to the roster that's already really good. Just to kind of... add even more firepower to the arsenal. So I would rather them do that. And I'm not necessarily saying they should spend it on a skill position, but if there's a running back that you like that's there, if there's a middle linebacker that maybe fell to the third round, or you could trade up into the late second round and get, maybe that's what you want to do. I feel like they should kind of and who knows? Maybe there's a tackle that fell. Who knows? You never know. But I don't. I think center is far down my list when it comes to options in the third round. So whatever, like I said, whatever they end up doing, I hope it's not through the draft. I hope they either go with Dieter or JC, but we'll see. And the biggest news of probably of the last, well, not the biggest, but definitely probably tied, but the Dolphins have finally figured out their Xavian Howard thing, and obviously this has been going on for a while. Ever since they signed Byron Jones, this has been an issue, and they finally worked it out, and he's one of the best playmakers, he's one of the best playmakers in the secondary, probably in the National Football League. I mean, not probably, he is one of the best, if not the best, in my opinion. It's probably him, Diggs, and J.C. Jackson are the three best ball skills secondary members. And Xavian Howard is on a historic pace, and could very well earn himself a gold jacket if he continues on this pace and go down one of the great top 10 Dolphins of all time. So the Dolphins finally got a contract done with him. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. After much talk about a new contract being in the works for star quarterback Xavian Howard, the Dolphins have indeed signed him to an extended deal. As detailed by NFL Network's Mike Garafolo, the pact is a five-year in length and includes $50 million in new money. So it's a $50 million extension. If he plays all of it and plays throughout the entire contract, which is very unlikely, he'll earn up to $90 million. Hopefully he does and retires a Dolphin. That would be amazing. The previous deal was 3 years, $39, and obviously they extended that 2 more years with $50 million on top of it. His annual salary, it's around $20 million. Which eclipses Jalen Ramsey, who's at exactly 20. So I think he is actually the highest paid corner in the league right now. He's definitely getting paid more than Byron now. So he deserves it. Sorry guys, I'm leaking snot everywhere. It's disgusting. I'm trying not to breathe in through my nose right now. Anyway, it's what was I gonna say? Oh, he deserves it. He's a great player. I mean, literally, I could point to at least one game every year that he wins for us. Last year, it was the Ravens game. I mean, if it wasn't for him making that play that completely changed the power balance of that game, we were in full control of that game after that. Completely flipped the script on that game, and really allowed us to kind of just take control and we never let go of it after that with the fumble recovery, and he returned it for 6. And obviously the offense couldn't do jack diddly squat up into that point, and he single-handedly won that game for us. And had a fantastic, not only was that a fantastic play, but we were running zero coverage the entire night. And the Ravens have one of the best receiver corps in the National Football League. They have Rashawn Bateman, who's a really good young receiver, and obviously Marquise Brown and Duvernay. All of those guys are really good. And the fact that he was one-on-one with them all night and didn't give up anything and Sami Watkins. I forgot they had Sami Watkins last year as well, and Sami Watkins actually played in that game. So it was one of the best games I've ever seen. Definitely for a Dolphins secondary member, one of the better games I've ever seen from a secondary, especially a cornerback tandem with Byron and X. They had such a good game, and they were dominant. And Xavian Howard was just on another level in that game. So he deserves all the money in the world. We've seen how front offices can manipulate the cap in a lot of different ways, and I think the Rams are probably the best example of that. So the Dolphins still have a good amount of cap space left. Like I said, if they wanted to go out and get J.C. Treader, they still can. So this doesn't hamper them in any way. Obviously, Byron Jones took the pay cut, and really allowed even more room for players like Tyreek Hill and Teron Armstead, and obviously this deal as well. So the Dolphins still have plenty of cap space. It doesn't hurt them in any real way, but he's definitely one of those guys that I think we all would love to see retire in these colors. So hats off to Chris Greer. He's had a very good offseason. not only adding talent to the roster, which not only adding talent, but adding talent where there are huge holes, and I feel like he nailed that. This is by far the best offseason he's ever had, and not only has he done that, but he's retained some of the great players that have contributed to our back-to-back winning seasons. And, I thought Xavian Howard said something really awesome in his press conference and I love how, Xavian Howard at all of his press conferences has been very real. Like, he's never, I feel like if you want information, watching Xavian Howard press conference, one of the things he said, not one of the first things, but one of the things he said, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but he was like, hopefully we can get the offense playing up to our standard. And that's really what has completely hampered this team. And I know I'm not telling anything, but it was nice to hear Xavier Howard saying that he hopes Mike McDaniel can kind of lift it up, because the defense is really good. And it's really special, and obviously they have the defensive staff coming back with the additions of Sam Madison and Patrick Surtain to that defensive group, which just makes it even more special. They have an opportunity here to do something special in the next 2 years. They really do. And it's just, I think Chris has done a good job of maintaining that and adding to it as well. And I think just the whole, I really, 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 really am happy that Xavier Howard didn't, leave the Fins and go play for another franchise. And he's sticking with us. And he obviously said he hopes. One of the other things I love that he said is he hopes he retires a Dolphin, even with a Hall of Fame jacket, which I think we're all hoping for that as well. And he is a fantastic player. He's a great player. And it's just nice to have him for the foreseeable future. Probably Chris Grier's best pick so far of his career. And I think that was Chris's first draft, if I'm not mistaken. And again, when you look at Chris's draft history, it's not that bad. It just gets weird when you it's like, who gets the credit for this stuff? Because when Chris is wrong, then he blames it on someone else, but when he's right, he takes the credit for it. So it is just weird. Like, when you look at the history of front office decisions for the Dolphins in the last 10 years, it's very weird. So let's get into this new story. And you know what? Before we get here, because I want to start here. The Dolphins have also retained Nick Needham, which was a huge, huge deal. Obviously, a former undrafted player. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. He is re-signing with the Dolphins officially, which is great news. God, Lord of mercy, I'm going to sneeze all over the place. Nick is a fantastic player. Ever since he got to the Dolphins, really, even his rookie season, he had a great rookie year. Made a lot of plays his rookie year. I feel like he's one of those players that doesn't, even by the fan standards, you would think he was like a Matt Collins, who's like, this is like the fan favorite, the glue guy type dude. And he had a really good year last year. I think he dealt with some injuries, but he had a really nice year. He's one of the best slot corners in the league. And he's a great run defender, physical at the line of scrimmage, and he's really good in coverage as well. And he's got great ball skills, too. A lot of players in the secondary have fantastic, even Javon Holland, who, the secondary is just so good. They really are. Like Xavian Howard, Byron Jones, Nick Needham, who's a fantastic player as well. Javon Holland, Brandon Jones. I mean, the secondary is stacked. And I'm glad the Dolphins are able to keep Nick around. And another great pick by Chris Grier. Chris has always done a great job in the later rounds and the undrafted players. He's always done a great job with that. And this is another example of that. So, very happy for Nick and happy for us as Dolphins fans because he is a really good slot corner, which is a very hard position to play, because you are very involved in the run defense, and you have to guard the quickest, best route runners on the team week in and week out. And that's tough, and just a lot of responsibilities. You have to read your keys at a very high level to be a really good slot corner. You got, obviously, the play action game is really hard to read when you're a slot corner because you have to be in run fit so much. And I think Nick has always done a really good job of that. And he's done a pretty good job of tackling throughout his career as well. So, again, just a great job by the Dolphins of retaining him and not letting him walk out the door. All right, moving on for that. This is probably the thing that I wanted to discuss the most. The Dolphins have traded Devonte Parker to the New England Patriots. The Patriots, again, this comes from Pro Football Rumors. Let me get the exact details for you guys here. Trade will see Parker and a 5th-round pick go to the Patriots in exchange for a 3rd-round pick. So the Dolphins are sending a 5 and Devonte Parker to the Patriots for a 3rd, and that's it. Now, here's where it comes. I'm going to add this onto the story because this is even more interesting, especially for Dolphins fans to know. The Falcons, Cowboys, Packers, and Texans all were interested in trading for Devonte Parker. That comes from Pro Football Rumors and Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. All of them contacted the Dolphins. Okay, and apparently the Packers were pretty, I guess, heavy in the discussions. So this is why okay, first of all, getting an extra 3rd-round pick I think is big because, like I said, I think there's a lot of players in this draft that will fall to the late second, 3rd round that are good players. Like there's a lot of players that are some of my favorite players in the draft that I think will be available there. Who knows? Maybe even Kenneth Walker would fall that far. Who knows? You never know. Like, there's always someone who falls because of some stupid reason that becomes a fantastic player down the line. So, I'm actually kind of happy the Dolphins were able to at least get a 3rd-round pick out of Devonte Parker. I think we all knew Devonte Parker, because I want to start here. I think we all knew Devonte Parker was not coming back after Cedric Wilson and Tyreek Hill. I have, especially the last year and 2 years, not been the biggest fan of Devonte Parker, and I'm not going to start being the biggest fan of Devonte Parker at all. One thing, the DP, I think, he never was a number 1. He struggled to stay healthy. He was inconsistent in playing, too. I think that's a lot of people don't understand, is it wasn't just him. He was relatively healthy the last 2 years. He played 10-plus games, I think, each of the last 2 years. He just wasn't consistent enough ever. Now, you could blame that on a lot of different things. So you hear my dogs itching in the background. Sorry, guys. You could blame that on a lot of things. Offensive line, he wasn't the greatest in the quick pass game. Maybe with a better offensive line, you could have seen more production out of him, better organizational situation. Maybe you see more. Oh my God, the pugs are the worst. Everybody, I might have to mute the mic and go take care of this. What was I even saying? Devonte Parker. Yeah, I think him and Tannehill probably got the worst rap in terms of, like, if things were a little bit different, maybe his career is even better. But the last 2 years, it just hasn't been great, whether it's injury or it's inconsistency playing. Whatever it really has been, he hasn't shown up. And I understand. I don't think this is a bad trade by any stretch of the imagination. I just do not like him. Why would you? I don't know. I think the Dolphins probably got the best offer from the Patriots. It's like, why do we have to trade him to New England? And it's not even because I'm scared of him. It's just like, he was a Dolphin for a long time. He's top 10 all-time in receiving yards. He landed number 6 on the all-time Dolphins receiving yards list. He was a big contributor to some of those down years. He was the most fun part to watch on some of those bad offenses for sure. And it's just going to suck seeing him in a New England uniform. I just wish Chris would have went outside of the division to make that trade. It's just going to kind of be weird seeing him in a different uniform. I'm sorry about the banging. Anyway, I don't want to get distracted here, but Devonte Parker, mixed career with the Dolphins, very mixed, very much a love-hate relationship. He had one really good year, and that was the tank season, and he had a lot of really good moments that year, and especially the last 2 months of the season, really had a dominant run there and was great, but he just never could put it all together, whether that was off the field, he had the injuries. He didn't always seem that dedicated. And then on the field, he just was so inconsistent, and would show and not show up. And you could say the same for the Dolphins offense. I mean, he kind of just rode the wave of a bad offense for a long time. And, and he was a part of that. When we needed him to play better, he never really did. Here's an example I want to bring up, because people are going to say, well, he was on a bad offense. I could already hear it. True, he was, but look at Jaylen Waddle. Jaylen Waddle is a legitimate number one receiver. In his rookie season, on a terribly, terribly bad offense, he played great every month of the season. He did not disappear, ever. During any part of that year, he was consistent. Consistently great. And that's what the great players are. That's what the true number one receivers are. They're consistently great. And I think that's a great example. I think it's a great comparison to make, because yes, Devonta Parker was on a bad offense, but when you look at someone who is truly great, he was able to get around that. And you could see the way the Dolphins were game planning. They wanted to get the ball to Waddle as much as they possibly could, because they knew how great he was and he was reliable. You never really got that with Devonta Parker, especially in 2020 and 2021. In 2019, the tank year, yes, they actively tried to get the ball to him. After that, it just never happened again. And Devonta Parker's career is just weird. It is what it is. The trade's even kind of weirder. I think the Dolphins did a great job of getting a high-value pick for him, and I think they can turn those picks, those 2 third-round picks, into something pretty decent, and get quality players there. So, at the end of the day, I'm actually kind of happy about it. I just wish he was in a New England uniform. That's really the only negative of the trade. And one thing I want to add on to this, before we move on from the Devonta Parker thing. I think, again, what people don't really understand, and I've seen some Dolphins fans not really like this trade, and I don't really know why, but it allows players like Cedric Wilson to get more playing time, which I think is a big deal, and I think Cedric Wilson's ceiling is higher than Devonta Parker's at this point in their careers. I think Cedric Wilson has a really good opportunity to become something really, really good, and especially just his size and speed and his run after the catch ability is really, really unique, and he separates much better than Devonta Parker can at this point in his career. It's not even close, and he's a better route runner as well. So, and again, people forget, I think Cedric Wilson is 6 feet 2 inches. He is actually a big receiver, and that's the same height as Devonta Parker. Now, Cedric is not as good as Devonta Parker as being a physical receiver. I think Devonta Parker is better at that than Cedric Wilson, but everything else Cedric Wilson's better at. I think even in the red zone, he's going to be better than Devonta Parker for a lot of different reasons. I think because you can do so much in the red zone with him. So this was a really good trade. The only thing I like I said, I just don't like is the whole thing. They were able to get a third-round pick, and this allows some of the other playmakers on their roster to kind of get more shine, like Cedric Wilson, even players like Hunter Long, who I still think have bright futures ahead of them. So I think I like this trade a lot. So other than the fact that he's a Patriot, it's kind of gross. I think that's it for the. Just to throw this in here, because it's obviously he's a big deal in Miami, but Frank Gore obviously officially retires. You guys already know this. Had one really good game against the Jets with the Dolphins where it was like a 3rd and 20, and Tannehill dumped it off to him, and he got it. And that was probably Frank Gore's best play as a Dolphin. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. And one thing I want to say before we move on to the fan Q&A is that, like I said, there's a lot of really interesting players that could fall to the 3rd round that maybe are positions that other organizations don't value as much. And the fact the Dolphins have 2 third-round picks this year in kind of that sweet spot, I think they can. It helps them move around the board a little bit too if they wanted to trade up into the 2nd round and get someone. But if someone falls to them in the 3rd round, or even like I said, late 2nd, they want to trade up, they cannot do that. So I think there's great opportunity there for a lot of interesting players. But I think I've just repeated myself for the 15th time, but you guys know what I'm saying. Not a lot of questions answered this week. Kind of makes me sad a little bit, but it is what it is. So let's get into the fan Q&A. I think we did about almost half an hour on news, which is pretty good amount of news to go through there. This first question comes from KC Fanatic. He says, "Do you know what pick we got for Parker? I heard 3rd round only." We just went over it. Yeah, it's just the 3rd round, and we had to send the Patriots a 5th round pick. Like I said, for all the reasons I just brought up, that I like the trade, but I just wish he wasn't a Patriot, I think. And it, like I said, allows the Dolphins to move around the board. I actually want to make a video of like all the players the Dolphins could get in the 3rd round that could make an impact on the team, because I do think there's a few guys that I really like. This next question comes from Casey again. He says, "Hey Skaggs, we added great players this offseason. Do you still see our team needs as edge, center, linebacker, and running back?" No. Running back is definitely cured. Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds, mixing a little Gaskin there maybe. That completely fixes that issue. Raheem Mostert has a chance to be really good in the NFL. Chase Edmonds is already really good in the NFL. I think he's proved that, especially last year. He's a really good 3rd down running back. He's a really good all-around guy. He's going to get you 1,000 yards from scrimmage. So adding that to the offense is really obviously fantastic. So they don't need a running back. I wouldn't be opposed to them getting someone. If Kenneth Walker is in the 3rd round, I really, really like Kenneth Walker. I think he's, first of all, would fit perfectly into this scheme and make a huge impact. But if he does fall at 3rd round, I think the Dolphins should strongly consider picking him because he is such a good player. But other than that weird scenario, if that happened, I think the Dolphins have pretty much covered the running back position. Edge is a completely not an issue at all. Van Ginkel, when he is just a pass rusher and not a tweener linebacker, he is a fantastic pass rusher and a fantastic player in the run game as well. Jalen Phillips is fantastic. Really came on at the end of the year there as a difference maker. Broke the single season rookie Dolphin sack record. So and then obviously Ogba's coming back. So no, the edge is not an issue. Center is not an issue, in my opinion. There's definitely depth issues there that the Dolphins should probably address. Obviously, Michael Dieter, even if he is the plan, he does have some injury history there. So maybe depth issues you could address. Linebacker is an interesting thing that I've seen a lot of people bring up. The Dolphins do not need a middle linebacker. They do not need one. Jerome Baker and Landon Roberts are fine. They need a tweener linebacker, the Kyle Van Noy type of a guy. When they switched Jerome Baker to that role, he was amazing at it. Now, if they want to switch Jerome Baker to that role, then yes, they do need a middle linebacker to kind of take, at least to be the heir to the Landon Roberts throne. And plus, the Dolphins obviously sometimes they'll play the tweener and then 2 other linebackers that are kind of in the middle of the field. So I guess in a way they need a middle linebacker. It just depends on what they're going to do with Jerome Baker. So in my opinion, the Dolphins should go out and get a tweener guy like a Kyle Van Noy. At least should look into it. I wouldn't mind Jerome Baker playing there. He won AFC Defensive Player of the Month at that position. If that's what they decide to do, I think he can do it really well. He's really good at blitzing. So when people say linebacker, I think it's more like a specialist type of a position, because I really don't want Van Ginkel in that role. He is not good at it. He sucks in coverage. He needs to be exclusively a pass rusher and edge player. So they need to kind of figure out what they're going to do with that. But other than that, I think the 2 major things the Dolphins that are legitimate questions that they should address are the tweener linebacker and I guess punter, because I can kind of understand where people are coming from with the Michael Pilardi thing. That's it. But it's not a whole hole, though. Like, the Dolphins can easily cover that up, and it won't affect them on Sundays. This next question comes from Bad Bandit. He says, "Hey, Skaggs, what role, if any, do you see Noah Igbenogany having next year?" None. I don't think he can crack a secondary this stacked, honest to God. He would have to beat out Nick Needham, and even that's a tall order for him. I don't think he's going to be able to do that. Maybe he can get into the lineup as a specialist role. This is clearly Chris Grier's probably tied with Charles Harris as the worst pick he's ever had. Depending on who you want to blame for the Charles Harris pick, whether it was Gase or Chris, that's up to you. But this is definitely starting to tread on Chris Harris territory. Even though Chris is having a resurgence in Detroit, yeah, I mean, Noah Igbinoghene has been an absolute no-show since he was drafted, and it's not necessarily his fault. Looking back on that was a really stupid pick. I think 1,000% what the Dolphins are trying to do with the Igbinoghene pick is replace Xavian Howard. I honest to God believe that. I think Brian Flores was trying to pull a Bill Belichick on that one, and it just backfired in his face, and it hurt. That, I mean, listen, they could have went in a million different directions with that pick, and they just kind of like, even me thinking about it right now, they could have traded up and gotten Justin Jefferson, for God's sakes, or gotten Brandon Ayuk and traded up to get him. Like, they could have done so much other creative and things that would have affected the organization in a positive way, and they just, again, just thinking way too far ahead for their own dang good, and picked Igbinoghene. And I think for sure that's the reason they picked him. Because if you look at the roster at the time, they just signed Byron Jones. Nick Needham is a really good player. He's clearly ascending and trending in the right direction. They have Xavian Howard on the roster. Why in the world would you draft a corner in the first round? It just doesn't make any sense. Now, I will say this. The rest of that draft was pretty good. They got a lot of good players out of that draft. And especially if the Tua situation, finally he's got help around him, and hopefully he can, obviously take back some of that stuff. But it's just ridiculous. That pick was stupid. It was definitely a look ahead type deal thing, and they never should have done it. And if I was the GM of the team, obviously I think if we all were the GM of the team, Igbinoghene would have been one of the last things we even thought about. At the time the Dolphins needed another safety. They ended up getting Brandon Jones, and obviously he's blossomed into something pretty special. But you could argue maybe that's what they wanted to do with Igbinoghene. I can tell you that definitely, I think the whole thing with Xavier Howard is definitely what happened there. But anyway, the point is that was a stupid pick, and I don't think he's not going to, I think his only hope is that somehow Surtain and Madison unlock something in him. That maybe some of the other coaches weren't able to get out of him, but that's his only hope, because the guys in front of him are just too good, and it's unfortunate. But what? That's Chris's fault. So I don't really understand, even to the point where Chris and even Brian Flores signed off on the Justin Coleman deal, which completely undermined, and I don't even know how that wasn't a red flag to everybody at the time. I'm sure I discussed it, but the fact that they went out and got Justin Coleman as more corner depth it's just even more of a slap to the face, honestly. That just goes to show you what the organization thinks about Igbinoghene. I don't know why they haven't. It's definitely surprising that they haven't cut him yet. Maybe they see something in him, or maybe they just don't want to prove. Or I've never liked the whole thing. Oh, the organization doesn't want to cut someone because they don't want to admit they're wrong. They don't have to admit anything. We all know that they were wrong. Like, I've never understood when people said that. It's like, they don't have to admit it at all. We are watching these games. The dude doesn't even get activated sometimes. They don't have to admit anything. Okay? It kind of just speaks for itself. But anyway. Yeah, the organization clearly doesn't think Igbinoghene is something that is going to be a part of the future of this team. Clearly, with some of the offseason moves that they've made over the last few years, they're going to have to figure it out. Maybe maybe they want to get another corner in here at that 4 spot. They still have some interesting players though, like that could fill that role. So I don't think that'll be an issue either. But anyway, the point is the Igbinoghene situation, when you really look at it, is one of the dumbest decisions that this team and organization has ever made, and it honestly was kind of. And especially looking at the reasons behind it, they weren't looking at, okay, this is the best player available, and that's what they needed to do at the time. They just picked someone like, okay, we need to get Xavian Howard's contract off of the books. Let's just get somebody in here that we think can replace him, and I guess that was Igbinoghene, and obviously that ended up backfiring. So anyway, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed. The Dolphins are doing a really good job this offseason, and we still haven't even hit the draft, and I think there's still, I know people probably aren't that excited for it, but there's still a lot of really good opportunity there for something pretty good. So hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.